Hey guys, it's Sylvia from Velicor Adventures, and today I'm going to share my thoughts on World War Z by Max Brooks. Which is kind of funny if you think about it, because I'm sick, therefore diseased, therefore probably already a zombie. So first off, I want to explain that I had missed the whole entire zombie bandwagon long ago. So far, I've only seen a couple zombie movies, like the classics like Dawn of the Dead or the older ones. But like the new zombie hype, I have totally missed. I've only recently finished season 1 of The Walking Dead. I know. Chelsea is always on to me. She's like, "You're so far behind." I'm like, "I'm sorry." And I've only read one other zombie book. It was Rotten Rune by Jonathan Mayberry, which was a while ago. And I really didn't get into it. But World War Z, which has the subtitle of the oral history of the zombie war, which should have gave a hint to the format that it was going to be. It's like an interview style, where the main character interviews people all over the world and like talks about different stages of the zombie war. It's mostly like high-ranking officials or people that are like critical to certain parts of the zombie war. He goes to places like China, Greece, Brazil, Barbados, Africa, Japan, the US, France, Israel, and Chile, and a bunch of other places. I had to make sure that I stopped when the interview was done if I wanted to stop reading, because once I got back into it and I was in the middle of the interview, I would think I was reading about somebody else and I would get really confused. And then I had to go back and, oh, what's about this person? I can't really remember what they were doing. The way this is done is really interesting because you can see how different parts of the world were impacted and what they did, because it became it was a world war, where, zombies were the enemy. And I would say that it is probably more realistic of what would happen. Usually, whenever I think about the zombie apocalypse, I think about, like, individuals or small groups fighting off zombies. And there was some of that in the book, but it was mostly, like, people gathering together and trying to survive. And it talked about government and the relationships between nations, and it was just gave more of a feel of, like, the whole world situation if something like this were to happen. So that is the end of the spoiler-free section. Now I'm going to talk more about the details of the book, and if you don't want to be spoiled, you can go ahead and go. Leave. There are several parts of the books that I found really interesting, especially with the sociology of it. Since I have taken a lot of sociology classes, it's second nature to me now. In one of the states, in the United States, it talked about how people who were higher up in, like, the pre-war, like, society, like CEOs and stuff, became practically worthless because they couldn't take care of themselves, and the people who were on the bottom rung, like laborers and immigrants, became, the top because they knew how to sustain themselves, and they became the teachers of the people who were higher. The social system was reversed, and it was hard for some people to deal with that because they were like, well, you know what I did, and stuff like that. And it didn't matter because none of that, you didn't need that anymore. Another thing, they describe how the zombie is like the perfect enemy because there are 3 things you need for an army. You need to be bred, fed, and led. While the human population was dwindling because, of the infection spreading, the zombie population was rising. They were getting what they needed to eat, and they didn't need to be led because there was no structure, but they all were after one goal. And so each individual zombie knew what to do. And also, zombies didn't have any limits. Like, they didn't have, limits on their endurance, and they would never surrender, and they could never be negotiated. So they were just an ongoing, constant threat. Another thing I really liked about this book is that it talks about what would happen, like, just like all the scenarios. It feels like everything was covered. Like, they talked about feral children, like kids whose parents had died and they were left on their own to raise themselves. And they described them as they couldn't even do human-like things because they were never taught. And they were just, feral people. And in the book, some of them grown up to be teenagers and adults. And it was really hard for the military to deal with them because, they were still human, but they were wild. I really like this book. It was a lot different than I expected, but in a very good way. It just explored all the things that would happen. It talked about people in different countries, and they talked about astronauts who were left on the space station. That was interesting. And also, there were people, I forget what they were called, but there were people who, like, snapped, and like, they talked about how in the war, some people would join the enemy for some reason, and there were people pretending to be zombies. Like, they really thought they were zombies. And they would bite people and just act just like a zombie, but they wouldn't be, like frozen like a zombie in the winter. To me, what was funny, a lot of people in the book did not refer to the zombies as zombies. They called them Zach, which is interesting because it puts like a name with it, like a person, but they were all Zach or G's. I don't know if that's like a military reference or not. So, those are my thoughts on the book. Please leave comments, questions. Let me know what you thought of the book, and if you have any questions about it, let me know. And I'll try to answer them best I can. So, please check out our Twitter and our Goodreads, and like and comment and subscribe. And I will see you on our next adventure.